In this part of Budget 2016, we are going to discuss Cenvat Credit Rules. Rules are being amended so as to allow banks and other financial institutions to reverse credit in respect of exempted services on actual basis in addition to the option of 50% reversal too. The rules are being amended to improve credit flow, reduce the compliance burden and associated litigation, particularly those relating to apportionment of credit between exempted and non-exempted final product services. Changes are also being made in the provisions relating to input service distributor, including extension of this facility to transfer input services credit to outsourced manufacturers, under certain circumstances. The amendments in these rules will also enable manufacturers with multiple manufacturing units to maintain a common warehouse for inputs and distribute inputs with credits to the individual manufacturing units. The rules are being amended to provide for reversal of Cenvat credit of input services which have been commonly used in providing taxable output service and an activity which is not a service under the Finance Act, 1994. 4. The Cenvat Credit Rules are being amended so as to allow Cenvat credit of service tax paid on amount charged for assignment by government or any other person of a natural resource, over such period of time as the period for which the rights have been assigned. The above amendment shall come into effect from April 1, 2016. Important changes in Cenvat Credit Rules. 2004 effective from January 4, 2016. Wagons of subheading 8606-92 of the Central Excise tariff and equipment and appliance used in an office located within a factory are being included in the definition of capital goods so as to allow Cenvat credit on the same. Amendment in Rule 2, Clause A, Subclause A, Item I, and Condition No. 1 of the rules refer Cenvat credit on inputs and capital goods used for pumping of water, for captive use in the factory, is being allowed even where such capital goods are installed outside the factory. Amendment in Rule 2 Clause A, Subclause A, Condition 1A, and Clause K, Subclause II, of the rules refers having value up to Rs 10,000 per piece are being included in the definition of inputs. This would allow an assessee to take whole credit on such capital goods in the same year in which they are received. Amendment in Rule 2 Clause K refers service by way of transportation of goods by a vessel from customs station of clearance in India to a place outside India is being excluded from the definition of exempted service. This would allow shipping lines to take credit on inputs and page 31 of 38 input services used in providing the said service. Amendment in Rule 2, Clause E refers manufacturer of final products is being allowed to take Cenvat credit on tools of Chapter 82 of the Central Excise tariff in addition to credit on jigs, fixtures, molds and dies, when intended to be used in the premises of job, worker or another manufacturer who manufactures the goods as per specification of manufacturer of final products. It is also being provided that a manufacturer can send these goods directly to such other manufacturer or job worker without bringing the same to his premises. Amendment in Rule 4, 5b refers presently. The permission given by an assistant commissioner or deputy commissioner to a manufacturer of the final products for sending inputs or partially processed inputs outside his factory to a job, worker and clearance therefrom on payment of duty is valid for a financial year. It is being provided that the same would be valid for 3 financial years. Amendment in Rule 4.6 refers. It is being provided that Cenvat Credit of Service tax paid on amount charged for assignment by government or any other person of a natural resource such as radio frequency spectrum, mines etc. shall be spread over the period of time for which the rights have been assigned. It is also being provided that where the manufacturer of goods or provider of output service further assigns such right to use assigned to him by the government or any other person, in any financial year, to another person against a consideration, balance Cenvat credit not exceeding the service tax payable on the consideration charged by him for such further assignment, shall be allowed in the same financial year. It is also being provided that Cenvat credit of annual or monthly user charges payable in page 32 of 38 respect of such assignment shall be allowed in the same financial year. Amendment in Rule 4, Sub-Rule 7, refers. Which provides for reversal of credit in respect of inputs and input services used in manufacture of exempted goods or for provision of exempted services, is being redrafted with the objective of simplifying and rationalizing the same without altering the established principles of reversal of such credit. Sub-Rule 1 of Rule 6 is being amended to first state the existing principle that Cenvat credit shall not be allowed on such quantity of input and input services as is used in or in relation to manufacture of exempted goods and exempted service. The rule then directs that the procedure for calculation of credit not allowed is provided in sub-rules 2 and 3 for 2 different situations. Sub-Rule 2 of Rule 6 is being amended to provide that a manufacturer who exclusively manufactures exempted goods for their clearance up to the place of removal or a service provider who exclusively provides exempted services shall pay, that is reverse, the entire credit and effectively not be eligible for credit of any inputs and input services used. 3 Sub-Rule 3 of Rule 6 is being amended to provide that when a manufacturer manufactures 2 classes of goods for clearance up to the place of removal, namely, exempted goods and final products excluding exempted goods, or when a provider of output services provides 2 classes of services, namely exempted services and output services excluding exempted services, then the manufacturer or the provider of the output service shall exercise one of the 2 options, namely, pay an amount equal to 6% of value of the exempted goods and 7% of value of the exempted services, subject to a maximum of the total credit taken, or B, pay an amount as determined under Sub-Rule 3A. Maximum limit prescribed in the first option would ensure that the amount to be paid does not exceed the total credit taken. The purpose of the rule is to deny credit of such part of the total credit taken as is attributable to the exempted goods or exempted services, and under no circumstances this part can be greater than the whole credit. Sub-Rule 3A is being amended to provide the procedure and conditions for calculation of credit allowed and credit not allowed, and directs that such credit not allowed shall be paid provisionally for each month. The 4 key steps for calculating the credit required to be paid are: no credit of inputs or input services used exclusively in manufacture of exempted goods or for provision of exempted services shall be available. Full credit of input or input services used exclusively in final products excluding exempted goods or output services excluding exempted services shall be available. C. Credit left thereafter is common credit and shall be attributed towards exempted goods and exempted services by multiplying the common credit with the ratio of value of exempted goods manufactured or exempted services provided to the total turnover of exempted and non-exempted goods and exempted and non-exempted services in the previous financial year. D. Final reconciliation and adjustments are provided for after close of financial year by June 30th of the succeeding financial year, as provided in the existing rule. V. A new sub-rule, 3AA, is being inserted to provide that a manufacturer or a provider of output service who has failed to follow the procedure of giving prior intimation may be allowed by a Central Excise officer, competent to adjudicate such case, to follow the procedure and pay the amount prescribed subject to payment of interest calculated at the rate of 15% per annum. VI. A new sub-rule, 3A, is being inserted as transitional provision to provide that the existing Rule 6 of CCR would continue to be in operation up to June 30, 2016, for the units who are required to discharge the obligation in respect of financial year 2015 to 2016. VIE, Sub-Rule 3B, of Rule 6 is being amended so as to allow banks and other financial institutions to reverse credit in respect of exempted services on actual basis in addition to the option of 50% reversal. Following are the other changes being made in Rule 6 of the Cenvat Credit Rules. Explanations 3 and 4 are being inserted in Rule 6. Sub-Rule 1. So as provide for reversal of Cenvat credit on input services which have been commonly used in providing taxable output service and an activity which is not a service under the Finance Act, 1994. Sub-Rule 4. Is being amended to provide that where the capital goods are used for the manufacture of exempted goods or provision of exempted service for 2 years from the date of commencement of commercial production or provision of service, no Cenvat credit shall be allowed on such capital goods. Similar provision is being made for capital goods installed after the date of commencement of commercial production or provision of service. 3 Sub-Rule 7. Is being amended so as to provide that credit taken on inputs and input services used in providing a service by way of transportation of goods by a vessel from customs station of clearance in India to a place outside India shall not be required to be reversed by the shipping lines. Sub-Rule 7. Coupled with the corresponding amendment in the definition of exempted services aimed at allowing credit of eligible inputs, input services and capital goods for providing the said service and providing Indian shipping lines a level playing field vis-a-vis the foreign shipping lines. The credit available may be used by Indian shipping lines to pay service tax on the services of transportation of goods by a vessel from outside India to the customs station of clearance in India, which would become taxable w.e.f. June 1, 2016 after enactment of Finance Bill 2016. J. Rule 7 of the rules dealing with distribution of credit on input services by an input service distributor is being completely rewritten to allow an input service distributor to distribute the input service credit to an outsourced manufacturing unit, also in addition to its own manufacturing units. Outsourced manufacturing unit is being defined to mean either a job worker who is required to pay duty on the value determined under the provisions of Rule 10A of the Central Excise Valuation, Determination of Price of Excisable Goods, Rules, 2000, on the goods manufactured for the input service distributor or a manufacturer who manufactures goods for the input service distributor under a contract bearing the brand name of the input service distributor and is required to pay duty on value determined under the provisions of Section 4A of the Central Excise Act, 1944, Amendment in Rule 2M, and Rule 7 refers. K. Presently, Rule 7 provides that credit of service tax attributable to service used by more than one unit shall be distributed pro rata, based on turnover, to all the units. It is now being provided that an input service distributor shall distribute Cenvat credit in respect of service tax paid on the input services to its manufacturing units or units providing output service or to outsourced manufacturing units subject to, inter alia, the following conditions. Credit attributable to a particular unit shall be attributed to that unit only. Credit attributable to more than one unit but not all shall be attributed to those units only and not to all units. Credit attributable to all units shall be attributed to all the units. Page 37 of 38. Credit shall be distributed pro rata on the basis of turnover as is done in the present rules. L. It is also being provided that an outsourced manufacturing unit shall maintain separate account of credit received from each of the input service distributors and shall use it for payment of duty on goods manufactured for input service distributor concerned. The credit of service tax paid on input services available with the input service distributor as on 31st of March. 2016 shall not be distributed to an outsourced manufacturing unit. Further, provisions of Rule 6 of Cenvat Credit Rules, 2004 relating to reversal of credit in respect of inputs and input services used in manufacture of exempted goods or for provision of exempted services, shall apply to the units availing the Cenvat credit distributed by input service distributor and not to the input service distributor. Rule 7b is being inserted in Cenvat Credit Rules, 2004 so as to enable manufacturers with multiple manufacturing units to maintain a common warehouse for inputs and distribute inputs with credits to the individual manufacturing units. It is also being provided that a manufacturer having one or more factories shall be allowed to take credit on inputs received under the cover of an invoice issued by a warehouse of the said manufacturer, which receives inputs under cover of an invoice towards the purchase of such inputs. Procedure applicable to a first-stage dealer or a second-stage dealer would apply, mutatis mutandis, to such a warehouse of the manufacturer. N. Presently, an invoice issued by a manufacturer for clearance of inputs or capital's goods is a valid document for availing Cenvat credit. It is being provided that an invoice issued by a service provider for clearance of inputs or capital's goods shall also be a valid document for availing Cenvat credit. Amendment in Rule 9. I. refers. Rule 9A of the rules is being amended to provide for filing of an annual return by a manufacturer of final products or provider of output services for each financial year. by the 30th day of November of the succeeding year in the form as specified by a notification by the Board. P. The existing sub-rule 2 of Rule 14 prescribes a procedure based on FIFO method for determining whether a particular credit has been utilized. The said sub-rule is being omitted. Now, whether a particular credit has been utilized or not shall be ascertained by examining whether during the period under consideration, the minimum balance of credit in the account of the assessee was equal to or more than the disputed amount of credit. Make the discussion successful through your inputs and inquiries and comments. Our first priority is to respond to our subscriber queries. Your feedback is important for us. Write us at tldcdeli@gmail.com. Call us at 0999988235. Never miss a chance to view new videos. Subscribe our channel and like our videos. Currently the subscription is free.